Welcome back to the Work from Homesteader. Hey, I am Lauren. I am a working mom who is just trying to get food on the table and sharing my experience with you guys. I am participating in SOUPtember held by Mennonite Farmhouse, and I am so thankful to participate with all of the other lovely YouTubers that are making soup this SOUPtember. So we're going to get started and we are going to start making our own chicken broth. Now, don't get intimidated, you guys. It is so easy. And as always, if anything feels like too much when you're making it from scratch, go ahead and get it from the store. It is just always the best if we are making things from home, whether that means that we are starting from, buying things off of the shelf or making it with our own two hands. To make this chicken broth, it is so easy. All you're going to do is take a whole chicken. I get mine right from Costco. I put it in the Instapot. I cover it with water, put some salt and pepper in there. If you're really feeling extra, throw some onion and garlic in there. It'll really add some great flavor. Cover it and cook it for about 25 minutes. It'll depend on how heavy your chicken is. And then you're going to take the chicken out, pick it apart, and strain the leftover liquid and put it into your soup. Once you're done picking the chicken, you can take the bones, throw in some more liquid, and make some bone broth when you're done. So the first soup up on the list is a potato and chicken corn chowder. Now, when I do my potatoes, typically I honestly just leave the skins on, but since these were from the garden and they were starting to have a little bit of green on them, I decided it would be best just to peel that off. I cube them into smaller pieces. I like smaller potato chunks, but you could obviously leave them a little bit bigger if you like a chunkier soup. And then we're going to go ahead and throw that into the pot and get a little bit of color on them using some bacon grease. Now, I love to save my bacon grease. I use this really awesome saver by Solite. I'll link it in the description below, but it really just helps me remember to save it and it looks pretty on my counter. Now, go ahead and throw it in your stock pot. Get the grease nice and hot and put in your potatoes. Don't forget to put some salt on there too. We want to make sure we're salting throughout so that it gets a lot of nice, good flavor. Next up, we are going to chop up our bell pepper. Now, I chose green because that's what I was able to pick fresh from my aunt's garden. So you could also use a red or a yellow or really sub in any kind of veggie that you like. So I think that carrots or celery or maybe even a leek would go really well here. Honestly, I think that's what's great about soups is that you can really just throw in whatever you're trying to get rid of in your fridge. It's honestly a great way to make sure that you are reducing waste in your kitchen. One thing you cannot substitute for corn chowder is the corn. Now, we got this from my mom. She had gotten about 100 ears of corn. They shucked them and they froze them. I put that in the fridge the night before so that they thawed a little bit. But I am just going to cut off all of the kernels off of the cob. And I'm actually going to save these cobs for later on and make some corn ice cream. Now, funny story, I actually got an ice cream maker last summer to make this ice cream. And while I have actually used the ice cream maker quite a lot, I never made the corn ice cream. So it is absolutely on my to-do list this fall. So definitely, if you want to see that, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can see that video come out because I am so excited to try and make that. Give everything a good mix while it is sauteing in the pan. By this point, our potatoes should be pretty soft. And what I like about this is it kind of speeds up some of the cooking process, especially if you're in a rush on a weeknight, you're kind of getting some of the cooking done and all that flavor. Now we're going to take the chicken out of the Instapot. We are going to go ahead and pick this chicken. My dog's going to see if he can get some of it. I swear my dogs will eat anything. They love all of the table scraps. We are going to take the chicken off of the bone, and I'm going to use probably somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 of the chicken here. And then I'm going to take a knife and chop it up. I really like to have smaller pieces in my chicken. I don't like bigger chunks of chicken in my soup. And again, I like to kind of keep the size consistent throughout the soup. I really feel that makes it a little bit better of a mouthfeel when you're eating it, and just easier for the kiddos too when they're eating the soup to have everything the same size so they know what to expect. And then we're going to go ahead and take the rest of the broth that is remaining from the chicken and use a strainer and pour it into the soup directly. Now you could use another bowl if you wanted. I just honestly hate making additional dishes that I don't need, so I just put it right into my soup, and that worked out really great. I would say I probably put about 4 or so cups in there, and that worked out pretty great. If you want it to be a little bit on the creamier side when we add the cream in a little bit later, put in a little bit less. But again, the great thing about soup is that you can really play around with the proportions based on what you like in a soup. I taste tested it here, and it was tasting really great. So one of the last things we're going to do is add some cheese in here. I really love like a creamy, cheesy soup. It feels like fall. It feels like winter. I absolutely love it. I'm using this white cheddar cheese. I really like to use block cheese when I'm making anything where it's melting, because it really does melt so much better. You don't have all of the anti-caking agents on it, and it really just helps it kind of incorporate into your food a little bit better. And I also like the white cheddar because it doesn't have the dyes in it. So something I recently learned is that regular cheddar cheese is dyed and it's not naturally orange, and that's just wild to me that we're adding the dyes into cheese. So I usually get that from Costco, and I just throw it right into my soup, and it melted up nicely. And then I am going to go ahead and add a little bit of cream at the end. This was absolutely a family favorite and definitely going to be added onto our regular list for the winter. The next soup on the list is this really delicious pumpkin chili soup. It's somewhere in the middle, honestly. It's a thicker soup, and it is so delicious. I decided to roast a fresh pumpkin for this one. I got one from my aunt's farm, and I just really wanted to make use of it and do a little bit of fall cooking with this. You could obviously use just a can of pumpkin as well. I actually made this a week later and used that, and it worked just fine. I just roasted this for about an hour at 425, and I did this the day before so it had time to cool off. And then I put in a pound of Italian sausage and then a pound of ground beef, and I just fried that up. And I think the most important thing that people forget to do is really let that get nice and crispy, and that'll get your flavor on there. I took the cooled off pumpkin and put it in the blender with about a cup of water just to get it a little bit thinner, and I blended it for just about 30 seconds just to get it nice and thin to add into the soup. The next thing that we're going to add in is the smoked paprika. Now I'm adding this to the beef. I always like to make sure that I season the beef when I'm making a soup or a stew so that there is a good flavor attached to that meat. I'm also going to put in the pumpkin puree, and I'm going to stir that around a little bit so that those flavors can marry together. Now we're going to add in some more of that homemade chicken broth. As you can see, it's a little bit gelatinous, which is awesome. That means that there's a lot of really good, healthy nutrients in there. That's all of the collagen from the chicken. I'm also going to add in 1 chipotle pepper. This is optional, but it does give a lot of flavor. It did not make it spicy. The only time it'll make it spicy is if you either cook it for a really long period of time and that breaks open, or you break it open on purpose and those seeds come out. But otherwise, it should not make it too spicy. I added 1 can of cannellini beans. You can also use butter beans. Those would be really great here. I think they're one and the same, but sometimes they're labeled a little bit differently. And that added a really nice flavor. I chopped up some arugula to put in later. I did not put it in right away because I did not want it to get too wilted. I put in 1 can of roasted fire tomatoes, and these were so good, added a really nice smoky flavor. And then I also put in a box of shell noodles. Now, I was originally going to do rice here, and I decided last minute that I wanted noodles, so that's why I'm using my Annie's mac and cheese noodles. Definitely, I would recommend just getting regular noodles there. It'll save you some money. Now, you're going to want to cook it for a little bit longer than the box recommends. I always find that when I'm doing a soup with noodles, it takes a little bit longer than if you were just making them separately. And I also put a little bit of heavy cream in here. You could probably substitute milk if you wanted, if you didn't have heavy cream on hand. We will absolutely be making this soup again this winter, and I can verify that it is baby approved. The last soup that we're going to be making is a delicious lasagna soup. Now, I have been seeing this like almost everywhere, and I have finally decided to try it. So I started off with frying up 1 pound of beef again and 1 pound of Italian sausage. And I just, again, fried it up really good. Got a lot of crispy bits on it. That's really where your flavor lies. And then the next thing that I did was I pulled out a jar of spaghetti sauce that we canned last summer. It definitely needed to be used up because we have some fresh ones in there. And this is the perfect way for me to use it for my family, especially since my husband doesn't really like spaghetti. So we honestly don't eat a lot of spaghetti sauce, but this is definitely going to be how I use it in the future. So I just mixed it up with the meat, got it really well incorporated, and put some more of that homemade chicken broth in there, probably about 2 cups or so, and I mixed that all up. This came together really, really quickly, and then I added a little bit more water because I was going to add in the lasagna noodles. And what you want to do is you want to break them up, and what you want to not do is what I did, and I accidentally dropped them everywhere, which was just like such a mess. But you want to break them up and put them right into the soup and cook them for a little bit longer than the directions recommend. Then once it was done, I just topped it off with some fresh ricotta and mozzarella cheese, mixed it in, and it was so dang good. Now, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and sharing it with your friends. Go ahead and check all the information and links in the video description for all of the other YouTubers participating in the SOUPtember event, and go to Mennonite Farmhouse on October 3rd for her live giveaway. You can enter by commenting on any of our SOUPtember videos, and again, thank you so much for watching.